Hello, everyone. You are listening to Kingdom Stories, where we tell stories of hope and power from the lives of everyday Christians just like you and me. It's my hope that these stories encourage you in your walk with the Lord and remind you weekly about how awesome our God is. Hey, everybody. I'm here with my sister, Tina. Tina, you want to say hi?
Hello, how are you, everyone?
All right, Tina. So, you want to start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you want people to know about you on the surface?
Sure. My name is Tina Encarnacion, and I am a wife and a mother, and I am a trauma and abuse coach. So I enjoy helping others.
That's awesome. So, you want to start us off by kind of like setting the stage for, I know you were telling me about your childhood a little bit earlier. Maybe if you start
Mhm.
there to kind of give
Sure.
people some context.
Yeah, I was born into a family of five. I was number four out of five, and the first four of us were only 13 months apart. So there was a lot of us in the family. My youngest sister came 6 years later. I was born into an atheist family. Religion was not allowed in my house. Both of my parents had negative experiences with church in their childhood, which caused them to despise religion and really keep it away from the house. My grandmother went to a Science of the Mind church, and she exposed me to religion, but it was not a religion where you would find Jesus. They were more about the angels and your consciousness and creating your own universe. And because of my personality traits, I wasn't like the rest of my siblings. I wasn't well behaved. I didn't follow the lines, and so my parents had a lot of issues with me growing up with my behavior, and so I was very emotionally abused, mistreated, set apart from the rest of the family most of the time. And I had really struggled with feelings of unworthiness, not being enough, being unlovable, and really trying to find my place in this world. So definitely had a trying childhood, to say the least.
Sounds like it. So how did Jesus come into that? How did God come into that?
So all of my parents homeschooled all five of us children. At the age of 13, I begged and pleaded to get out of the house. So I managed to get into public high school. And when I got into public high school, I developed friends that I had never had before. And all of the friends that I had befriended all went to the same youth group. And they kept inviting me to go to youth group every week. And I kept begging my parents, can I please go? Can I please go? It wasn't for religious purposes. I didn't even know who God was. I just wanted friends. I didn't have any friends. And there was this group of really awesome kids that were wanting to include me. And so I just wanted to go to be with my friends. And so after about 6 months of begging and pleading to be able to go to youth group, my parents finally said I could go, but there were conditions. My parents set conditions on everything in our life. And so the conditions were you can go to youth group. However, you cannot believe in anything that they preach. You cannot give them any money. You can only go to youth group. You cannot go to Sunday church. You cannot do any extracurricular activities outside of that youth group. It's solely for social purposes only, and that is it. And so I was so excited. I didn't care about the conditions. I just knew I was going to get to hang out with my friends after school 1 day a week. And I was like on cloud nine. So when I started going to that youth group, when I walked in, it was the pastor's first day of preaching on the book of Revelations. And so I went every week for 13 weeks, and he was preaching on the book of Revelations for 13 weeks. And by the end of the 13 weeks, I knew that I didn't believe if God was real or not at that time, but I knew that if he was, I didn't want to go to hell. Like
Mm.
that, I was terrified of hell. And I also knew that what I had heard was pretty awesome, the way that this Jesus guy lived. And he didn't hurt anyone. He only wanted to love people. He only wanted to make the world better. So if I lived by his teachings, even if he wasn't real, it wouldn't hurt me at all. All it would do is benefit my life and teach me how to live as a better person. And so in October of 1997, 96 or 97, I met with my youth leader and I asked Jesus into my heart and I became a born again Christian. That night, I can remember I felt complete. I felt like I had found something that had been missing my entire life, but I also felt terrified because I had just broken my parents' rules and I had just gone against everything they told me I couldn't do. And I knew that a punishment was coming. I didn't know what that punishment would be, but I knew that one was coming. And so one Thursday, shortly after I became saved, as I was getting ready for school, my dad called me out into the living room to talk to him and my mother. And he said, Christina, you've been going to this church quite a bit. I was like, yeah, it's fun. They sing really awesome songs. And so he said, I've got a question. What do you need to do to become a part of this religion? Do you have to pay them? Do you have to do rituals? He was raised Catholic, so they do catechism. He wanted to know, like, what steps do you have to take? And I said, no, Dad, you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins and ask him into your heart, and then you're saved. And right there, he already knew that I was saved. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I just told on myself. It was hard because I wanted to lie to him, which is what my old self would have done without a blink of an eye. I would have lied to him seamlessly and no one would have known the difference. That was a life I had lived. But I was a Christian now, and I was trying to live by Jesus's teachings. And Jesus said, you can't lie. He also said you have to obey your parents. But by becoming a believer, I was disobeying my parents. So I was torn, right? How can I live the teachings of Jesus, which contradict obeying my parents? So it was such a hard line to walk, and I had to figure out, who do I obey? Do I obey my God, or do I obey my parents? Because one or the other I'm disobeying. And so it was definitely a struggle in my life. So Dad didn't say anything else to me that day. He said, okay, I'm going to take you to school. And it's a 15-minute drive from my house to my high school. And it was the most silent, deadliest silent car ride I had ever gone on. And I had this pit in my stomach, and I knew something was coming. I didn't know what, but I knew something was coming. And when I got home from high school that day, me and my siblings shared a bedroom together, and then my parents shared the other bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom house, very, very small, about 800 square feet. And when I got home from school, my mattress had been moved out to the floor of the living room. And all of my clothes from that bedroom had also been thrown into the corner of that living room.
Wow.
And I knew I was no longer part of the family. I knew I had been disconnected, that I had been thrown out. But legally, they couldn't throw me out because I was 13. So they had moved me away from the rest of the family and separated me. And it was so hard to swallow, because it truly was in black and white. I had chosen God over my family. And this is the repercussions. I didn't have much time to waste. I had to get ready for youth group, because youth group was that day. And so I went through my belongings and I was looking for my Bible, and I couldn't find it. So I walked into my bedroom that I used to share with my siblings, and they didn't even acknowledge me. They looked through me as if I was invisible, as if I wasn't even there. Wow. And I was asking them, where's my Bible? Where's my Bible? And no one acknowledged me. No one said a word to me. So I stood in front of the TV and I was like, where's my Bible? Somebody answer me. Where's my Bible? I'm mad. I'm crying. I'm just infuriated. And my little sister, who was only 5 or 6 at the time, starts cussing me out, and swearing was not allowed in my house. And so I go into my mother's room and I'm like, Amber's cussing me out, and Amber's swearing at me, and I can't find my Bible, and who put all my stuff outside? And I'm just like screaming, and I'm just enraged. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't seen any Bible. I don't know. And so I just grabbed my jacket and I walked out of the house, and I walked to my youth leader's house, which was about a quarter of a mile away, in tears. And after that day, the family life was different. I was to cook and clean and take care of the family when I was at home, and that was basically it. I really felt like almost like a slave. Wow. I didn't feel like part of the family anymore. And so I kind of started to distance myself from the family and not come home. I started sleeping on people's couches from the church, and just trying to be around people that loved me, that were like-minded, that accepted me. And then in the wintertime, there was a winter retreat for the youth group. And so I had to get my parents' permission to go. They had to sign the permission slip. And so I hung my head low and I walked back into my parents' house and I said, I really want to go to this retreat. You don't have to pay anything. I made all the money up already. Can you just sign the permission slip form? And my mom said, okay, I'll sign it, but under one condition, because as I said, there's always conditions. She said, you have to make a decision. It's us or it's God, but you can't have both.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so I knew at that time I was 14 years old. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't take care of myself. So I knew I had to give God up. There wasn't an option. I was a minor. And so I wrote letters to my pastor and my youth leader and all my friends, and I passed them out as I got on the bus to the winter retreat, saying goodbye to everybody, knowing that I would never see them again. And just being broken hearted and like this life and this new identity that I finally feel like I'm meant to be, like I'm somewhere where I belong, was going to be gone after this weekend. And I just was devastated. And then we got up to the winter retreat, and the pastor was teaching about trusting in God. In all things, God is in control. If you just surrender to him, he will take care of you. And I got on my knees at that winter retreat and I prayed and I said, God, I'm going to choose you. I don't know what's going to happen. I trust that you have my best interest at heart, and I trust that you will not let me fall, and I'm going to choose you no matter what. And so when I got back from that winter retreat, I went home no longer scared of anything, knowing God was going to take care of me. I went home with every intention to pack up my clothes and leave that house and sleep on the street if I had to.
Wow.
Because I wasn't going to turn my back on God. And when I walked in that house, my mother welcomed me with open arms. She was like, Christina, come tell me how it was. It was as if nothing had ever happened over the past year, as if we were best friends. And I couldn't believe it. I was like dumbstruck for a second. I was like, well, what are you trying to get out of me? Like, where is this going? But then I had to realize this was God's blessing. This was God saying, thank you for choosing me. This was God's way of reassuring me that I made the right decision.
Wow.
And I had to trust that and live my life with that trust that he took care of me. He didn't let me fall. He changed my parents' hearts and allowed them to have mercy and compassion on me. And he even allowed me to be able to forgive them for all they put me through. And so I knew God was working in our house. The interesting thing is, when I brought Christianity into my parents' home, a home that religion had never stepped foot in before, it opened up Pandora's box. And my entire family started searching for religion.
Wow.
My oldest sister started studying Wicca, which is a form of witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest sister started looking into Buddhism. My mother and my brother started studying Seth, which is a new age religion where you create your own consciousness. You become your own God. And then my brother also started studying the Bible. Not to learn about God, but to convince me that I was brainwashed and to catch me up in the Word of God because I didn't know it yet. So he was going to study it. So he knew that Bible better than me. So he could turn it against me.
Oh my.
And the funny thing is now my brother is a born again Christian and he attends the same church that I went to get saved.
I love it.
So isn't that a coincidence? So I definitely had a journey with my relationship with Christ. It has been painful and it has been joyful and it has been all of the emotions across the board. And I've got so many different stories I can share with you. But I would say the most impactful story that I have had in my walk with Christ is when I was giving birth to my first daughter. Mm-hmm. Because I still struggled with confidence issues and with self-worth issues and value, I hadn't had an easy path, obviously. At the age of 18, I was diagnosed with an incurable illness and I was given 2 years to live. And I overwent 30 surgeries to stay alive. But it was by the grace of God that I survived and lived past the doctor's life expectancy for me. But because I was still struggling with that self-worth and not being enough, I was getting into relationships with men that didn't love me. And I was getting into relationships with men that didn't love me because I didn't know how to love myself. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that, even Christians. Even though we know God and we love God and we know we're children of God, our mind still plays with us. And we still have a hard time believing that we're as valuable as God sees us. Mm-hmm. And so I got into a relationship with a man and I got pregnant by him. and we were not married. I was sinning, and in fact, I was trying to stay away from men so that I wouldn't sin sexually when I met this man, which is just so crazy. So I actually had been dating this man for 8 months, and we were only dating in public because I didn't want to fall into sin and sleep with him before marriage. But I had gotten sick and I was on bed rest. And so he came to my home to visit me because I couldn't go out. And we ended up being intimate on that day, and we got pregnant. And I got pregnant with my daughter, Trinity. And I was so excited because I was told that due to my illness, I could not get pregnant. And I knew that this was God's gift to me, this miracle baby, that she was going to change my life, that she was my gift to focus my eyes back on Christ, if that makes any sense. And so when I told this man that I was pregnant, he automatically wanted me to get an abortion. He said, I'll pay for it. I don't want a child. I don't want a child. I barely know you. I don't want one with you. You're going to abort her. And I was like, absolutely not. This is a miracle. I'm not supposed to be able to get pregnant. I'm not going to abort my baby. And so he decided that if I was unwilling to abort her, he would beat her out of me. And so he started beating me on a nightly basis, hoping that she would pass away and that I would miscarry. Wow. And so probably about 6 weeks into the nightly beatings, I was laying there bloodied and beaten and black eyes. And I realized, if I don't get away from this man, he's going to take this gift from me. And even though I don't feel like I'm enough to leave this abusive relationship, she is. And so the next night when he started beating me, I fought my way out of that relationship, and I never looked back. In fact, I went into hiding because he kept finding me. So I quit my job, I moved my house, and I started living with family members to stay away from him. And about 27 weeks along in gestation with my daughter, because of my health condition, I went into renal failure. So my liver and my kidney shut down, and I had to deliver her early, which was devastating. But I'm sorry, I get choked up.
It's all good.
So I had to deliver her early. It was the only way for us to both live. But she was 27 weeks in gestation. And at 27 weeks in gestation, the baby should be around 3 pounds. And they only have to be 16 ounces to be hooked up to the respirator, which is the breathing device, until their lungs are developed so that they can survive. And so the doctor said, we don't know how big she's going to be until she comes out. But if she's 16 ounces, we have the potential to save her life. Or we could just give you a shot and abort her. And then we can just, scrape her out of you. It's your choice, but either way, she needs to come out today. And I was like, she's a gift from God. And God's got her back, and God's got my back. And if God wants to take her home, that's on him. I'm not going to play God with my daughter, and I'm not going to allow you to play God with my daughter. And so I refused to take the shot to abort her. And I wanted to give her every opportunity to survive. And when she came out, she was so precious. The doctors were telling me she could come out bruised. She could have broken bones. She's still very brittle. She's not very developed. She might not survive. All these could be's. When my precious Trinity Michelle came out, she came out completely intact. No broken bones, no bruises, no damage, no brain damage, nothing. She was literally, they said she's perfect. We've never seen one come out this small and this young, so developed and so perfect before.
Wow.
But the problem was she was 13.8 ounces.
Ooh.
She was just too small to be put on the respirator. So she ended up passing away. And I was devastated. Of course, I just lost my daughter, my purpose for being here in this world, my everything. But what was really amazing was our fight that led us from inducing the delivery to getting to the delivery. Was her spirit was so powerful that 3 nurses came to Jesus while we were delivering her. 3 nurses. I had nurses coming in and praying with me that were not even on my ward in the hospital, because they had heard the story go out across the halls about what me and Trinity were going through.
Wow.
So God was present. God was there the entire time. And I knew, even though she passed away, I knew she was with the right father. She had God raising her. What better father could you have than God? Like she would
Amen.
never be beat by this father here on earth. She would never be let down. She would never have to endure the pain of this world. Like, although I was brokenhearted and devastated, I was also joyous because I knew that even I couldn't raise her as well as he could.
Hmm.
So it was like a bittersweet moment. In 3 days, I was fighting for my life for 3 days after she was born. My organs were still not coming up. They were still not working.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctors had tried everything they could. And I was in the hospital bed and I couldn't speak. I was almost comatose. And the doctors called my family to come say their goodbyes to me because they said I wasn't going to live through the night. My toxicity level was too high. They'd done all the medication they could think of. They just told my family, just come and say your goodbyes because we don't see her making it any longer.
Wow.
And it was weird because I was like floating above my body, seeing the doctors and the nurses talk to my family, but I couldn't speak. And my dad was like, there's got to be something more. You can't count her lost yet. You've got to do something else. And he convinced the doctors to run a couple more tests to see if there's anything else they could do for me. And I recall the nurses and doctors pushing me on the gurney down the hall to where the big machine was that they were rolling me into. And the entire time I was praying, I was like, God, just take me home. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to be in pain anymore. I just want to go home with my daughter. She was the only reason I had left to live with her. Just take me home.
Mm-hmm.
And as they pushed my body into that machine, I saw a bright light and I was like, oh, it's God. He's coming to take me home. It's done. It's over. I get to go be with my daughter. And I was so excited. And I like could feel his warmth surrounding my body. And I
Mm-hmm.
could hear his voice. And he said, Tina, if you want to come home, I'll take you. The choice
Mm-hmm.
is yours. That's one thing I love about God. He always gives you a choice.
Right?
He never forces you to do it his way.
I love that. Yeah.
I do. It's just amazing how he's so loving and generous and merciful, but he lets you fall and mess up too. But then
Mm-hmm.
he's always there when you fall. Like he's like, okay, come on. Did you learn your lesson? Did you learn it? So
Yeah.
um, he was speaking to me and he said, you can come home if you want. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to be with Trinity. And he said, but if you choose to stay, this is the life that you will have. And I felt the love of a man that I had never experienced before. I've only experienced bad men.
Mm.
But the love that I was feeling was something that I didn't even know could be achievable on this earth.
Wow.
And I saw this vision of 3 children playing, and I was looking out a window at these 3 children playing in the backyard, and I knew I was standing in my home, and I knew that they were my children playing
Hmm.
in the backyard of my home. And then I saw all of these little lights coming up and surrounding me, moving towards me. And he said, those are all of the souls that you are meant to touch that you haven't yet met. And it was at that moment that I had to make a decision whether to go up and be with my daughter in heaven or whether to be selfless and stay here because I had not yet fulfilled my purpose that God had for me on this earth.
Wow.
And it was a hard decision. But it was at that moment that all doubt I had ever had about God was gone. It was
Hmm.
dissolved. I had spoken with him. I had felt him. I had experienced him in a way that most people don't get to experience him on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously I chose to stay. 3 months after I got out of that hospital, my body collapsed on me again and I had to have another major surgery. And at that surgery, the doctor said, there's nothing more we can do. We've cut way too much of your esophagus out. If it collapses again, we're going to medicate you and allow you to pass.
Wow.
Like it's done. 3 months after I got sent home from that surgery, I met my husband. 3 months after I met my husband, we got married. And that night, I got pregnant with my daughter, my second daughter. Now, when I got pregnant with Trinity, we discovered that I was allergic to pregnancy, which I didn't even know was possible.
Right?
They actually told me, you need to tie your tubes because if you get pregnant again, you're going to die. And I was
Wow.
like, I'm 24. Are you kidding me? There's no chance
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tie my tubes at 24. I was like, if God wants me to die, God will take me home. I'm not concerned. I know where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got pregnant with Kaylani, my second daughter, My husband had not experienced any of the stuff I went through with Trinity. He didn't understand the devastation of me being pregnant and what it comes with. And so
Mm-hmm.
we went to the doctor to find out what to do. And they said, well, the only thing that you can do is inject yourself with blood thinners twice a day and pray that you survive. Because what happens is when I get pregnant, my body sees my baby as a foreign object. So it starts to shoot blood clots at the baby to kill it. And
Ooh,
my baby sees me as a foreign object. So it's shooting blood clots at me to kill me. And so we literally are trying to kill each other during the whole pregnancy,
wow.
which is so strange. So I had to inject myself with blood thinners twice a day into my stomach the entire pregnancy with all three pregnancies,
Wow. Oh
all
my.
three of them. Yeah. And so we had three babies. They're all 13 months apart, just like my parents. It was planned. We are that crazy. I didn't want to go through diapers and sleeping through the night and start all over again. So I was like, let's just get it out the way. So God blessed me with three amazing children and an amazing husband. He thinks that I'm just barely below God. He says if people could walk on water, I would definitely be one of them. Like, it's crazy how much this man loves me. Like I could
Wow.
go crazy on him and lose everything, and he would still be beside me going, okay, now what? What's next? Like, this man that God has created for me is one of the most patient men I've ever seen. And for someone with
Wow.
ADHD, I needed a patient man. So God knew what he was doing when he created my husband. I now
Wow.
am blessed. I'm able to dedicate my life to serving others and helping people to see that even when things seem impossible, it's never over.
Wow.
There's always a way, and the way is always through Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just so blessed that the Lord has given me such an exciting life,
Right?
but a life filled with lessons so that I can go through them, because he's given me the strength to make it through all of them so that I can go back down into the fire and help others that are still in the trenches come out.
That's awesome. So I saw that you had a book.
Yes.
So that book is your life story?
Yes, that book is my life story. It goes into great detail. It's a self-exploration book. So
Mm-hmm.
each chapter is a life experience that I had. And then at the end of it, it has questions so that you can bring yourself into an experience in your life that you may not have learned your lessons from yet. And
Hmm.
then it ends with life coaching. So it basically helps you to see each one of the hidden blessings from God in your life experiences through going through the journey with me. And it's called Stuck in the Fire, a
Mm-hmm.
story of resilience.
That's awesome. And hearing your story, it really just shows me how much God cares, you know? And it's one
Mm-hmm.
of those like yeah, we know, yeah, God cares, but it's one thing to say he cares, it's another thing to have a story, you know? And it
Mm-hmm.
says in Revelation, Satan is defeated by the word of your testimony,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so we can argue all day, but having that testimony that says, yeah, I know God, I talked to him, you know, and he talked back, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
most people are like, oh yeah, you know, I pray, you know, and it's like, but do I ever really hear God? And a lot of people question themselves on that. But you're like, well, actually, I did. We had we had
Mm-hmm.
a conversation,
Yeah,
you know.
we
So
did.
that's really awesome. And then hearing how much he cared for you as a child, you know, and
Yeah.
just saw you through that family experience. I think that's also really powerful.
Mm-hmm. And looking back now, as I look at my childhood, he was there the entire time, even though I didn't know him. Like
Hmm.
he helped me through every single bit of my childhood. Even when I was being told there's no such thing as God, he was there in that room with me. And many times he was carrying me through it.
Hmm.
So,
I heard a really good analogy. It says God doesn't just change who you are; He can also go into your past,
mhm,
and He can bring you to see that He loved you even then.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
cared for you even then.
And if you're willing to drop down from your mind into your heart, you can see every single time he was there. Because I think a lot of problems with us as human beings is we live in our heads,
Hmm.
always questioning, always judging, always criticizing. Um, and when you do that, the noise is so loud you can't hear God's voice.
Wow.
God lives in your heart. So when you're able to get out of your head and drop down into your heart, that's when you truly get to speak with God and hear him.
Mm-hmm. That's lost on a lot of people, I think, because it's so easy to make it an intellectual exercise. You
Mm-hmm.
know, oh, I'm going to study my Bible. Oh, I'm going to meditate on this one thing. And those are great. But at the same time, God's an emotional creature just like we are. If you read the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see that he does have emotions.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely. He gets angry too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wants to engage with us on an emotional level. And you read the Psalms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is David doing? He's crying out to God from his emotions,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I really appreciate that, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm glad your story really illustrates that.
Thank you. I really feel like God is around us and God
Mm-hmm.
speaks to us every day. But in today's society, it's so busy and it's
Mm-hmm.
so loud that we do jump into the analytical side, like you said, and we forget to look for him. We're so busy trying to control our own life and our own destiny that we forget to allow him to take the lead. And
Mm-hmm.
his journey is always easier than our own. If we choose to let him take the lead, we don't have to suffer in the way that we force ourselves to suffer.
Some good lessons. Was there anything
Yeah.
else you want to add about your experience or self plug or anything like that?
Um, Self plug. Well, if you would like to purchase my book, you can purchase it on Amazon. Stuck in the Fire. And that book really helps you to go back into your own life and find God and see where he
Mm.
lives in all of your experiences. And so even if it's more so for you than myself, because I really want people to see where God shows up in their lives in the unexpected and the
Mm.
unseen areas. If you're struggling emotionally, physically, turn to God. He
Mm-hmm.
will save you. A lot of us have physical ailments that we struggle with in this world, and what we neglect to realize is that those physical ailments are suppressed emotions that we haven't handed over to God.
Mm.
So if you are struggling physically or emotionally, you need to sit with yourself, drop into your heart, figure out what are you suppressing, what are you running from, what are you hiding from, and once you discover that, hand it over to God so that he can help to heal you.
I like it.
Thank you.
It's a good summary. I like it. All right. Well, thank you for telling us your story. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
If you like the story today, please don't hesitate to spread the love. Share it, like it, and subscribe to hear more. If you want to share a story from your life about an encounter with God, please don't hesitate to email me at jesse@newawakeningministries.org. Stay safe and remember, the kingdom is among us.